Hi, friends. Welcome to today's live stream. I'm calling it Fix It Friday because it's Friday and I need to fix something. So um, let's see if you can see that. See this little mark here? It comes out. Let's see if I can get a good shadow on it. So yesterday I made this book cover. This is the back cover of this little book. It's going to be a watercolor book. And I had already glued down this pink end sheet, and as I was poking the hole through for this, the main holes were already punched. I was just pushing through the pink paper. This has never happened to me before, but my awl just slid and made this big gouge. So this is the awl I use, and it's really pointy. I typically love that it's so pointy, but yesterday I was not loving that. So I posted over on my Instagram just kind of showing that I made this mistake and what would you do. I always glue my back covers first, just in case stuff happens and I need to, like if I figure out that the cover paper actually crinkles up a lot, because I use a lot of paper that's not made for bookbinding and it's not made to have glue on it. So sometimes that can make it warp or crinkle. So I always do my back covers first. So this is a back cover, and I just kind of asked on my Instagram whether or not I should keep going. And so I did use a Teflon folder to try and kind of smooth it out, but it really didn't help. I think because this is so pointy and the paper was kind of like soft at that point because it had glue that had just been glued. The nice thing is it didn't go all the way through to the book board. So it's really just a dent. It didn't rip the paper. So I wasn't sure what I should do, of whether I should, just keep going or whatever. So I decided to put this into the press just like I normally would. And I went ahead and made the front cover because I I had a feeling I would figure it out. My initial thought was I would still just make this, but I would sell the book at a discount with this little blemish here. And, like I said, it's on the back cover. So by the time you get to that point in your book, in your watercolor book, it may not be that big of a deal to you. If it was on the front cover, maybe I would think about like trying to flip it over and turn the paper around, so that it was ended up on the back cover. But luckily, this one was already on the back cover. So um, I went ahead and made the front cover, and like I said, my initial thought was just sell it at a discount. But then so many people on Instagram had really, really fantastic ideas, as well as stuff that just didn't even occur to me in the moment. One of the most obvious things was to put a fresh piece of pink paper, just glue a fresh piece of paper down on top of it, which I have 100% done before on other projects. I couldn't, if I had more of the original paper, I would have probably just set this aside and remade the back cover in its entirety. But this is all I have left of this paper. I was just using some scrap to finish up and make these little books. So this is all I have left, and I really can't turn that into another cover. So the obvious choice, I have plenty of this pink paper. I could put another sheet of pink paper over top of it. I think that would hide this. One issue with doing that is that you can get into a situation where the the new piece of paper doesn't line up exactly with the old piece of paper. Because once the paper gets wet, it is a little bit more flexible and stretches. It's just something that if you're going to go that route in the future, I would just say make sure that you pay attention and are getting everything lined up really well, and not just saying, okay, well, I'm just going to put it down same way I do normally. Just pay attention that it may not line up even if you cut it to the same dimensions, depending on, if you have a lot more glue on the new sheet, it can stretch out more and stuff like that. So That's an obvious, easy fix, although it wasn't obvious to me in the moment. But a lot of people said, like, turn it into a flower or add an embellishment. I just saw a comment came through said add a like this book belongs to um, plate to it, which those are all great ideas. Somebody mentioned an idea and it just caught my eye and made me start thinking about um, how I might want to fix it. And they mentioned doing a hand torn embellishment. I can't remember who said it off the top of my head. I don't remember their username, but thank you if you're watching for saying that because it jogged my memory. And if you've been following me on Instagram for any amount of time, you know I have like this whole big, huge thing of scraps. I can't get rid of scraps, even like, look at how teeny tiny these are. So I have this whole big pile of scraps, as well as some of these pieces here that were just haven't even been put into the bundle. These are things that I've, made scraps from for the last week or so, maybe. But the hand torn element, this is a piece of paper that I've used. I just made another book this size, a watercolor book out of paper with this. And it kind of, the hand torn element, I love this paper and how it has this rough edge on it. And it kind of captured my thought of maybe using it to add on to here. Basically, a lot of the comments said, like, add a different paper. Some comments said add some of the original, but most of them were talking about adding an embellishment, adding a different type of paper. I think another commenter mentioned bringing it around to the other side of the book, which is really an interesting thought. So I'm going to kind of just play with some of these ideas today and see what I settle on. I have an idea. I like how this looks here. I don't know about carrying it over onto the front. I definitely wouldn't use this top little part. I might like tear it back to here. I just want to make sure that it makes sense. If I'm going to be doing some collaging, I want it to make sense, and I'd want to bring whatever element I use on the back on the front as well. I do really like this paper, but it is kind of basic. So adding an embellishment or adding some like other textural elements that would be a little bit different. It's intriguing to me. So I want to see if I can maybe pull in one or two more papers and kind of make it all work and make sense and make it something more creative instead of just trying to cover up something that was not working. So let's see here. There's another piece of paper that I used very long ago that was blue with, it was like kind of this darker blue with some white little bumps, like maybe like little half moons, I think. I'm trying to remember. And I want to see if I have any of that left, because I think that paper with this, or maybe just that paper alone, could be really cool. But it's been a long time since I've used it. So let's see what I've got in here. Blank pages down here. I'm going to just flip this over and see what I've got. These are kind of interesting. This would be an interesting contrast of pattern. I'm going to set these aside. I don't know that I'll use them, but I'm just going to pull stuff right now that is interesting. Those are, I think that's too bright of a color. Ooh, a marbled paper could be interesting. I also kind of like this, but this is cover stock, so that might be a little bit harder. I'm going to set a piece of paper aside for that, but I think that might be a little bit more difficult just because it's thick, especially if I'm wrapping it. The marbled paper is really nice because especially this stuff that I've made myself, the paper is really thin and flexible. Let's see what we've got. This is the paper I was thinking of. So I like that it has kind of a randomish pattern, and it's that navy blue that is in the background of this. If you look closely, you can see that this is a navy and this is the same color. So this is a paper I'm hoping I can find more of, but I have used so much of that paper over time that I really don't think I have that much left. I think I'm getting into the section of bigger plain papers here. A little bit more of that paper. A little bit more of that paper. Let's see. See, it's not a whole lot that I have. I'm going to take that because I use that with this paper. But even just these little teeny bits might be enough to make some sort of pattern collage that makes sense. Grab that too. This isn't, oh, there's more of that. I like this chevron paper too. I'm gonna pull that out. What's funny is a lot of these papers are from similar eras of when I bought this floral paper that I'm using. So it's interesting that I'm pulling a lot of stuff that, you know, it's all from that kind of same time period. I'm gonna pull that one. That's a little bit of light blue. All right, I think that's pretty much down back to those book pages. So let me just move this over and I'll add these guys back in and bundle it back up until the next time I need to use it. I used to just have a big box of scrap paper on the edge of my workbench, but it just got to be where I could not really even see what was in there. So I went through it somewhat recently and, you know, recycled the stuff that really I would not be able to use. And then kind of organized the stuff that was left. Okay, so I'm going to leave these. I have a few other pieces that are here that are maybe a lot of just plain papers. So I might need those for background elements, but let's get all of this stuff out here to kind of take a look at what I've picked out. Okay. All right. So maybe let's start with just start simply with this and see if I added this and maybe even just like, oh, you know, I could add it right like that to the front cover and oops, Let me see. I just realized you can't see it all the way on the camera. If I added this in the back and then added this as like a little stripe on the front of the cover, that could be really interesting, and wrap it around so it would go, let's see how far to it. So normally what I would do if I were doing an added element like this, I would glue it down before I put the end sheet on here. So I have the option, I'm looking at this kind of orangey paper here too. Do I want to use that as an additional layer right there, and then just have these elements on the front cover, and then where this is on the back, maybe just have it just on the inside of the back and have the back cover plain. I do that sometimes if I am adding embellishments to the cover, maybe doing it just on the front cover and leaving the back cover a solid. I actually really like that. I think it's kind of quirky, and I think that would be kind of neat to have the element on the front and then again on the back too. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go with. I don't think I want to add in anything else. I think that would be too much. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so let me get these things out of the way. And we'll start with the back cover first because that's the most important one to finish up and fix up. All right, so I can tell that this blue piece is not cut exactly straight, but I think I'm going to just be okay with that. The one thing I'd want to do is I want it to be straight at the bottom. I don't mind that this edge is, I think it's not exactly straight, but it may just be an optical illusion with that pattern. But I'm going to just trim this a little teeny bit. If you hear snoring in the background, my puppy is on the floor in the background, and she was snoozing away, so I didn't want to wake her up to move her for the live stream. So I apologize, but that's what you may be hearing in the background. Okay, so this one will go right here. And then I want to see if I do this all the way to the top. Let me look at how, I think this was 3 1/4. Oh no, 3. Okay. So I'll just trim this to 3 inches. Just checking to make sure that I am doing it for 3 inches because I realized, oh, I guess I do have a little bit more of this paper, but that one goes back into the pile. And let's see. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to line my cover up here on my board so I can get a sense of where everything needs to be glued down. Okay. Do I want it farther over? These are the little intricacies of what I have to figure out. I think I do want it farther over. Okay. So now I'm gonna, oh man, everything's moving around. Okay. So I like how that looks. I'm gonna scooch it over so that I know when I gotta put down the orange first. So I'm gonna glue it up and I'm gonna put it down in line with the 5.5. And then when I put the blue on, I'm gonna make sure that it's kind of 1/3 to 2/3 lined up there. Okay, so let me get my glue stuff set up here. I'm gonna zhuzh that up a little bit farther. Okay, I'm currently putting my glue into here because I have this one here that is dried out. I'm ready to pull it and pull off all that old glue. And then once I do that, I can start using it as a glue pot again, but I haven't done that yet. So while that was drying out, I've just been putting my glue in here. I won't really need very much glue at all. The glue I'm using is PVA. It's just a regular bookbinding glue. And this glue brush is 1/2 inch, but maybe a little bit overpowered for this one. But the next size down I have is like really small. So we'll just go with this one. All right. All right. I like how that looks so far. And let's see. How does that look? That looks pretty good. I always try to lay stuff down gently at first and then to make sure that everything lines up and then go from there. All right, so that's a good one. I like how that looks. And now you can't see that that scrape was there. All right, so this is going to go under weights and blotter paper so that it can dry and all of those pieces can really adhere well to the paper. So let me put that to the side. Okay. All right, now this next piece, I'm going to get this gluey piece of paper out of the way while I'm working on this. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is just glue this around and over and not have it go onto the end sheets. So let's see, that is, let's do it so it lines up. Oh, that's perfect. I have a cut line right here. So we'll line this one up with the 4.5. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of fold it with my fingers. So, oops, of course it's off slightly. There we go. So that I can see where I need to trim it here. It's going to be like 1/8. I think I'm just going to use my fingernail to burnish it. And then I'm going to snip this. And I think what I'll do is glue this in 2 parts so that I'll glue this top part and then make sure that that smooths down the right way that I want. Let's see. And then I will leave this part unglued, and then once the main part is glued, I'll come back and trim this off and glue that last little bit. Okay. Okay. Line that up and glue it. Okay, if you're just joining in, I have already fixed the part that was marked up. And I'm now, because I decided to add embellishments to it, I am now adding some stuff to the front cover to help tie in why I was using those embellishments. All right, this kind of flattened out while I was gluing. So let's see if I can kind of gently tack it down. And then I'm gonna pull this around. Oh, that looks good. Okay, perfect. All right, so there we go. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I can see that. So I will show you all who just joined the other one the back cover, how I fixed it. It's currently under weights right now. So now I'm going to use a teeny tiny brush that I mentioned earlier, just because I need to get in and add a little bit more glue here. Okay, but now that I know how far the paper is going to stretch out and all that, I'm going to, again, just use my thumbnail to kind of burnish where that line is and then trim the excess off. Okay. And let's see how that folds. Pretty good. Okay. Alrighty. This one I may just have to kind of hold up to get some of the glue down in there. And then put it down to get the rest of the glue onto that little flap. There's a teeny tiny bit of glue that eked out of the edge. So let me clean that up before it smears. All right, so we've got that part done. And again, I'm just gonna use my Teflon folder to kind of burnish it down in place. And I'm gonna smooth this one out too, make sure there are no wrinkles from when I bent that back a little bit. Okay, so now I wanna add this element to it as well. And it's just, I'm gonna glue this up, and I think I'll probably do it the same way. I guess I could do it, might make more sense if I did the top one right to the edge, and then I would save a little bit more scrap for the future. Let's do our bend right here. And do a little bend here so I know how much glue I want to put on. Oops, I need to measure and okay. So we'll do a little bit. All right, this is a little concerned because it is burnishing. It's like folding over and kind of going on a diagonal. So I'm afraid that if I don't follow that line, it's not going to match up to the end sheet here. See how that's kind of, I think I need to cut it diagonally a little bit. Yeah. Okay. right. Oh, see, now that's looking way too short. All right. Well, you know what? I'm gonna start gluing, and once I start gluing it, I'm just gonna adhere it and it'll be fine. That is pretty standard for me. Just all right, do my best and then just go for it. Um, get like the closest measurements I can and then figure it out while I'm doing it. Since I already have that other base piece on, it is a little bit easier to do that with this one. Um, because I don't have to exactly match it up. I don't have to match this one up to measurements on the board. I know that it's going to go right next to and just slightly overlapping this one. So it gives me a little bit more leeway here. It's definitely trying to go diagonally. So I'm going to zhuzh it. This navy blue paper is a little bit lighter weight than the orangey red one. So I can kind of make it do a little bit more of what I want it to do. It's a little bit more flexible. So I'm going to just flatten it all into place there. Okay, and just like before, I'm going to fold this one and kind of see it's really wanting to go diagonally. I don't know if that's because there's this little bit more thickness here, might be, but I'm going to have to cut it kind of on a diagonal. We'll see how that looks once it's cut. Looks pretty good. I need to trim just a hair off of it. All right, and I'm just going to do that last little bit with the tiny brush, and then this project will be finished up, and it'll be ready once it dries. This stuff usually takes 3 to 4 hours to dry, but I like to leave it overnight. So tomorrow I've already got the pages prepped for this one. I'll be able to sew it up then. And now that I'm using different colors and elements, I'll have maybe some more thread options for colors that'll be fun to figure out. All right, so there's the front cover. Let me grab that back cover. So on the back cover, again, we just didn't do anything, but we added the elements there on the inside. That's where the scrape was, or not scrape, but the dent was. So use the elements on the inside back cover to kind of bring them into the front cover. And there we go. It's all fixed up and ready to go and become a little mini watercolor book. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing this thought process of how how an accident turned into, a new, more dynamic, set of covers. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. And I hope to see you again next week on my next live. Have a great day. Bye.